Hey, lovely people. So, after watching Scream 7, I don't believe Stu was fake. The film tells us it was all just some deepfake setup by Preston Myers from Can't Hardly Wait for some reason, but I'm not buying it. In fact, the more I think about Scream 7, the more I think it accidentally makes the case that Stu is very much alive. Before I even went to the cinema, I genuinely thought, or at least really hoped, that Stu might actually be the killer again. And once those video calls started happening, I was thinking, yep, here we go, baby, they're actually going to do it. And then the film pulls back and tells us, nope, it was just a really good fake. These other randos are the real killers, and that's that. And honestly, I'm still not buying it. My overall reaction to Scream 7 is that I genuinely did enjoy it. It had some funny bits, some decent kills, and probably the most likeable new characters since Scream 3. Though, Mindy and Chad were so out of place, annoying, had the cringiest lines, and I'm pretty sure they helped get the younger characters killed by gathering them together. Yeah. Has Mindy or Chad ever watched a single stab flick, or any horror flick for that matter? I mean, if they had them in the movie just to kill them off, now that would have been worth it. You know, like Paris Hilton in House of Wax or Kelly Rowland in Freddy vs. Jason. Ah, well. So yeah, I enjoyed Scream 7, but I also came away frustrated. Because for a while, I thought it was building towards something genuinely exciting. It pulls you in with a mystery, gives Sydney something emotionally loaded to deal with again, and for a bit, it feels like this might not just be another next-gen sequel. It feels like it might finally be leading back to something that actually matters. Something tied to the original story, something personal. And obviously, for me, the biggest thing was Stu. Right at the start, you hear that radio or podcast or whatever it is, about a confirmed sighting of a man matching Stu's description at a sorority party at Windsor College back in '97. Great little Easter egg, by the way, especially since Matthew Lillard actually was in Scream 2 in the background at that party. For a minute, it feels like the franchise might really be doing something bold and getting back on track. Not just giving us yet another Ghostface reveal, not just another third act speech, but finally bringing the whole thing back to where it started. And then boom! It's just some mental woman called Jessica and Marco, her orderly lover from the asylum she was at, and a third rando dude mental patient called Carl, and basically, who cares? By the end, instead of feeling like the franchise had done something bold, I felt like it had teased the best possible idea and then stepped back from it right at the finish line. Though I will say having Ethan Embry as a Scream killer did make me smile. And the idea of mental patients being Scream killers was, well, pretty friggin' awesome. So, Scream 7 tells us Stu is dead, it tells us there are 3 killers, it tells us one of them has a background in computers and AI, and it wants us to accept that what we saw was basically just a really convincing fake. Fine, but for me, it's a bit too convincing. I mean, come on, not just the face, not just the voice, not just the scars, I mean everything. The way Stu talks, the way he carries himself, the way he needles Sydney, the little details, the emotional precision of it. It doesn't feel like some random psycho doing an impression. It feels really personal. And that's why I'm not buying the idea that this was just some clever bit of tech thrown together by people who never actually knew him. Because where would they even get enough material? Stu isn't some modern celebrity with endless clean archive footage floating around online. He was just some random teenager in California in '96 who became famous for killing people with his BFF Billy Loomis and was then supposedly killed by Sidney Prescott. No interviews, no documentaries, no years of public appearances, and all of this happened in that beautiful era before social media and smartphones. So how exactly is this orderly meant to know what Stu would look like 30 years later? How he'd sound, how the scars would sit on his face, how he'd move, how he'd smirk, how he'd twist the knife in exactly the right way. That's the bit that really doesn't sit right with me. And then there's a line to Sydney. That line lands because it feels personal. You could see it hit her right in the face. That's not just some generic Ghostface taunt. It feels like something coming from someone who was actually there. Someone who remembers her well. Someone who still gets a kick out of getting under her skin after all these years. Only Stu would know how to hit Sid in exactly that way. And that's before we even get into the bigger cracks in the story. Because Scream 7 doesn't exactly slam the door on Stu being dead, does it? If anything, it quietly opens it. We hear that a man fitting Stu's description was spotted at a sorority party at Windsor College in 97. Not just rumoured, that dude on the radio podcast thing said it was confirmed. Yes, obviously that's also a fun nod to Matthew Lillard's background cameo in Scream 2, but the second the film says it out loud, that's not just a wink anymore, that becomes part of the story. That shit is canon. Oof, I hate saying that word canon, what the hell. Then you've got that coroner stuff. There's apparently no intact form on Stu's body. The woman who was coroner back in 96 died 3 years ago, so there's no one left to ask. Records are missing, the paperwork trail is broken. The one person who might have been able to clear this up is gone. Or was she killed? Again, that is not the kind of detail you include if you want the audience to completely forget about Stu. That is the kind of detail you include when you want people thinking, hang on a minute, can anyone prove that he actually died? I mean, they didn't have a scene where they go to the graveyard and exhume Stu's corpse, did they? Because the more Scream 7 talks about Stu being dead, the less solid the evidence actually feels. And then there's that bit near the end where Marco talks about Stu being dead but alive in spirit. He doesn't sound like someone casually explaining the truth. He sounds like someone trying really hard to make Sid accept that Stu is dead. Like he's desperate to shut the whole thing down right there and then. And that's what got me thinking. What if the answer is much simpler? What if Stu really is alive and these killers found him? Maybe Jessica crossed paths with him somehow through the asylum world. Maybe Marco knew more than he let on. Maybe once they realised who they had, a plan came together. And maybe the deal was simple. You help us, and we'll keep who you are a secret. Because honestly, that makes more sense to me than the official explanation the film gives us. So yeah, there are rumours of Scream 8 and Kevin Williamson and Neve Campbell being involved again. So, my theory for Scream 8 is this. I think Stu is alive. I think the killers in Scream 7 found him. And I think he helped them, not in some vague, symbolic way, not as some "the spirit of Stu lives on" nonsense. I mean actually helped them, feeding them information, giving them details only he would know, and probably even appearing on those calls for real before disappearing again before anyone could physically catch him. The more I look at it, the less this feels like AI and fan obsession, and the more it feels like they actually had direct access to Stu himself. And these days, it's very easy for films to wave something away with AI did it. So yeah, I ain't buying that. I ain't even renting it. For me, that would instantly make Scream 8 far more interesting than just another new Ghostface reveal. Because one of the big problems with this franchise now is that the killers stopped feeling truly personal a long time ago. The first Scream works because it was intimate, nasty, grounded. 2 killers, 1 town, 1 circle of friends, 1 poor girl surrounded by betrayal. Scream 2 still works. Billy's mother wanting revenge for her son. Twisted, obviously, but believable within the world of the film. It's personal. Scream 3, for all its silly bits, actually gives the whole saga a really solid reason for why any of this began in the first place. Roman stalks Sid's mum, his mum, films her, gets the evidence that Billy never would have gotten on his own, shows it to Billy, and then boom, there it is. That's the engine. That's where the whole nightmare really starts. That matters. That gives the series shape. Honestly, after that, the franchise kept giving us new killers, but fewer and fewer of them felt like they actually mattered. The motives get thinner, the connections get weaker, the reveals get more, right, okay then, rather than holy shit. And that's why I keep coming back to Stu, because Stu is not just fan service. Stu is the last original killer left, who could possibly come back and make this feel personal again. Billy's dead, we saw him get shot in the head. Scream 5 already gave him that weird post-death presence. Stu is the one card this franchise still has left that could take the whole thing back to the beginning in a way that actually matters. And hopefully, if Scream 8 really is going to be the end, then that matters even more. Scream 4 was the point where the Scream films turned into the Stab films. I'm surprised Stab 5's time travel angle hasn't shown its face at this point. And that's the irony. They started off as these sharp, self-aware horror films mocking ridiculous slasher sequels, and now they've become exactly the kind of silly franchise machine that they were parodying. And at this point, Scream is not far off winking at the audience while juggling deepfakes, secret fanatics, endless legacy callbacks, and increasingly random killer reveals. Remember that scene in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where they walk onto the set of the new Scream movie, and the killer is a monkey? I mean, they were predicting the future right there.
Bastard, let's see who you really are. Fucking Miramax, cut!
It's not unusually I say cut.
A monkey, Wes? I mean, Jesus, you guys aren't even trying anymore, are you?
That's why Scream 8 needs to stop messing about. Because if this really is the finale, then stop acting like the next Stab flick and start acting like the ending of Scream. The newer films leaned hard into a younger era, which is fine, but the finale should belong to the story that started in '96. That doesn't mean younger fans can't love it. Of course they can. I was born in '85, so I was late to the party for the original Halloween and the original Friday the 13th. But that didn't stop me becoming obsessed with Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees growing up. I was at that perfect age when Scream jump-started the late 90s teen slasher flick era, and I was able to enjoy Halloween H2O, Halloween Resurrection, and Jason X, even though I wasn't even alive when those franchises first began. But that's how horror works. Different generations get their turn. But when it comes to ending a saga, you got to go back to your roots. You go back to what made it matter in the first place. And for Scream, that means Sydney. That means Woodsboro. That means the original betrayal. That means the original killers. And if one of those original killers is somehow still alive after all this time, obsessing over Sydney, still mentally stuck in '96, still unable to let that night go, then finally, after years of random new psychos, you've got a killer with actual meaning again. Not just another mask, not just another reveal, not just another third act speech, a real endgame villain. That's why I think Scream 8 should do it. Bring Stu back properly. Let him be the killer for real. Let Sydney see him face to face. No screen, no fake out, no deep fake trick. Just Stu, older, scarred, obsessed, and mentally still living in that house in '96. Because if you're going to end this franchise, end it with something that actually matters. End it with the one killer who can make the whole story feel personal again. So yeah, Scream 7 can tell me Stu was fake all it wants. I'm still not buying it. I still think he's out there. And if Scream 8 wants to end this story properly, then it's time to bring him back for real. And maybe also send Jamie Kennedy an invite to the premiere. I mean, come on.